Assalamualaikum, especially to Dr. Anis. Now we will be presenting Project 2, which covers inferential statistical analysis for our course SECI 1143 Probability and Statistical Data Analysis. So for this project, we conducted four different types of statistical analysis. First, hypothesis testing using a two-sample t-test on stress levels. Second, correlation analysis between work hours and also stress. Third, regression analysis for sleep versus CGPA predictions. And finally, a chi-square test to check the independence of gender and also job status. Now, let's look at the background of our study. We know that part-time work is quite common among UTM students as a way to manage their university fees and daily expenses. However, taking on these jobs leads to some common struggles, and it also includes exhaustion and fatigue, difficulties in balancing work-study commitments, and lastly is the potential impact on their CGPA and also mental well-being. So moving on to our dataset description, our data was collected through a Google form questionnaire with a total sample size of 103 respondents, or n equals to 103. Then our main focus was to understand the impact of part-time jobs on student lifestyle. So the key variables we measured include gender, job status, weekly work hours, sleep duration, daily stress level, and also CGPA. Before we analyzing the data, we perform data pre-processing. This means we converted the group survey answers into numerical values so that they could be properly analyzed in RStudio.
Okay, now I will talk about data analysis. For the data analysis part, we used to sample t-test to compare the mean stress levels between two groups of students who have a part-time job and those who don't. So our objective is to determine whether the working students experience significantly different stress levels compared to non-working students. For the hypothesis, the null hypothesis states that there is no difference in the mean stress level between both groups. Meanwhile, the alternative hypothesis states that there is a difference in the mean stress level. Based on the RStudio output, the p-value is 0.1995, which is greater than 0.05. This means the result is not statistically significant. Therefore, we fail to reject the null hypothesis. In simple terms, this sample doesn't provide enough evidence to say that part-time work has a significant impact on student stress levels. However, this doesn't mean that part-time work has no effect at all. It only means that based on our collected data, the difference in stress level between working and non-working students is not strong enough to be considered significant.
So now I'm going to talk about correlation analysis. Our main objective here was to determine if there's a linear relationship between work hours and also stress. So for the variables used, we compared work hours, which is a continuous variable, against the stress scale, which is a discrete variable ranging from 1 to 5. So for our hypothesis testing, our null hypothesis is H0, P equals to 0, and our alternative hypothesis is H1, P not equals to 0. So based on the scatterplot graph of weekly work hours versus the stress level, you can see the distribution of our data points. Then the result gave us a Pearson R value of 0.027, which indicates an exceptionally weak positive relationship. Also, the p-value obtained was 0.810.
Next, I will explain our regression analysis to determine whether sleep hours can predict CGPA. For this analysis, we use two variables, sleep hour as the independent variable and CGPA as the dependent variable. Both variables are numeric. The objective of this analysis is to find out whether the number of hours a student sleeps can significantly predict their CGPA. From the scatter plot, we can see the relationship between sleep hours and CGPA. The regression line shows a very small positive trend, meaning that as sleep hours increase, CGPA slightly increase. However, the relationship appears to be very weak. The regression equation obtained is CGPA equals to 3.000 plus 0.0157 times sleep hours. This means that for every additional 1 hour of sleep, the predicted CGPA increases by approximately 0.0157 points. However, this increase is very small. Looking at the statistical results, the slope value is 0.0157 and the p-value is 0.650. Since the p-value is greater than 0.05, the result is not statistically significant. Therefore, we conclude that sleep duration is not significant predictor of CGPA in this dataset. In other words, based on this data, the number of hours a student sleep does not have a strong influence on their CGPA. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Ahmad Nabi Putra. So I will be guiding you through the final statistical test of our project, the chi-square test of independence. So for this analysis, our main objective was to determine if a student's gender is associated with their part-time job status. And to do this, we focus on two specific categorical variables from our dataset, which is the gender and part-time job status. So we set up our hypothesis as follows. Our null hypothesis states that a student's gender and their part-time job status are entirely dependent variables. And our alternative hypothesis states that these two variables are dependent, meaning there is an association between them. So after running the cross-tabulated data through RStudio, our test yielded a chi-square test statistic of 4.3947 and a p-value of 0.3552. Because of our calculated p-value of 0.3552 is well above the standard significance level of 0.05, we failed to reject the null hypothesis, and our conclusion is that the decision to seek part-time employment is completely independent of gender within our sample. To wrap up our presentation, I would like to summarize our overall findings and the key takeaways from Project 2. Interestingly, our findings across all the tests were quite counterintuitive. Despite the common assumptions, we found no significant statistical links between work hours, stress level, sleep duration, and CGPA within this specific sample of students. From a technical standpoint, executing this project reinforced the absolute importance of rigorous data pre-processing and having strong practical RStudio skills. Most importantly, our major takeaway is that the inferential statistic provide a highly reliable mathematical method to separate everyday assumptions from factual truth when examining the student lifestyle. So thank you for your time, and that concludes our group's presentation.